You know, doing laundry and filming just doesn't seem to mix very well for me. This whole time I just keep thinking, can you hear that? Can you hear the washer and dryer going? Because the washer and dryer are literally in the hallway right outside this room. And I can hear it very clearly. And I'm just like, why did I do this to myself? Why did I do this to you, where you can just hear the laundry running in the background? I'm sorry. In advance, if you can hear that. If you can't, then that's great, and I don't have to worry about a thing, but if you can hear it, I am sorry. Hopefully my voice will drown it out in a good way, not a bad way. Not just where it's a cacophony of sound, but where it's, you just hear my voice and you don't worry about whatever that is that's clanging and rinsing in the background. I guess let's go ahead and get started and hope for the best. Welcome back, Fantasy Fiction Fanatics. It's great to see you again, and I hope you're doing well. Today's class, we're going to be starting a brand new book. We're going to be starting Homeland by R.A. Salvatore, which is part of the Dark Elf Trilogy. And this series is another series that has a world based off of D&D. So just like our Dragonlance books before, this one is the Forgotten Realms world of the D&D series. Again, I know minimal about D&D, especially for Forgotten Realms. I don't really know anything about the Forgotten Realms other than the little bit I've read by R.A. Salvatore. So any insights you can have that relates to D&D or anything that relates to the game, differences between Dragonlance, World of Krynn, and the Forgotten Realms, whatever it may be, I would love to hear about it. Since I am not the experts in that, I am more focused in reading the books than playing the game, though I do know the basic idea of the game and everything, and as well as what you have told me based on the Dragonlance series and the comments I've got there. So would love to hear all the thoughts and feelings you have about how the game relates to this series, especially how the differences for the Forgotten Realms, since I know very minimal about the Forgotten Realms. So, and the differences between the different D&D worlds. So again, just would love your insights on that if you have that, or if you think it impacts the story. So let's go ahead and jump right in. We're covering chapters 1 through 4 today. That also includes the prelude and the little section that's called Station. We have a lot that happened in these first 4 main chapters. As I was going through and reading, I've read this book before, but it's been a while, so I forgot how much it just drops you in there and how much goes on right from the start. So I definitely think that we need to go ahead and just dive right in. We have so much to talk about, especially with starting this book, talking about our basic ideas for the start of a book, as well as the world building, because we have a lot very, very quickly in these chapters. So let's start with our recap. So we start off very first thing seeing Dinin. I'm going to skip the station and the prelude because it's more of just a little information one. We don't really have many events. So I'm starting from chapter 1 with this recap, which I know is unusual. Usually I start with the beginning of whatever the prelude is. But again, I just felt like it was more information based and letting the reader know something instead of an event based thing. So I feel like we can start with chapter 1, where Dinin visits the academy in order to finalize the plans with the Faceless One in order to have a murder of a member of House DeVere. And Dinin does change those plans a little bit to make it a little bit more of a dramatic murder and involve taunting. And that night is when House Do'Urden, which is Dinin's house, attacks House DeVere. And they are out of favor of the Lolith, which is the Spider Queen, and they've decided they're going to take that house down and rise up in the ranks accordingly. So they attack, Matron Malice is actively giving birth to a baby boy when the attack is going on, and she is using that pain to cast spells with the help of her priestess daughters. So all of them are working to cast spells that are attacking that house, and they have their physical troops actually attacking the house while they're doing this magic and actually killing people and such. So House Do'Urden ends up winning at the end. So they manage to kill everybody and they win and are bringing everybody back. While they're there, though, before everyone is coming back, Dinan ends up killing his older brother in order to take his spot as the eldest son and to have his station, and kills him in the confusion so he can blame it on others and blame it on the attack. The Faceless One tries to kill Alton. So we jump over to the Faceless One and we see that he's trying to kill Alton Devere, and he is struggling. It's not quite a one and done attack deal. So he is seeming like he's still going to win, though. He's got Alton cornered when he ends up being killed by his apprentice, Mazaj. Mazaj, I think is how it's said. And then Alton decides from there, instead of having Mazaj kill him as well, that he is going to take over being the Faceless One and be undercover as him in order to get revenge later when he figures out who was trying to kill him and who has killed his family. So not everybody from House Devere is gone. And then Matron Malice ends up being called, I believe it's the next day, to the first house by Matron Boehner. And they end up talking for several hours. And during this conversation that they're having, there is kind of mixed in a sense that Lolith is happy with Matron Malice and the house for taking down Devere, while encouraging her also to reach for even greater heights, as well as intimidate her into not attacking the first house. So, again, we've got quite a few exciting things that happen right off the gate. We've got those two kind of introductory chapters or little sections for us to get going, and then boom, we're right in with some exciting, very action-packed portions of the story already. Not only that, but there is a lot packed into just this little area about the world, about the characters, about what's going on, about the society. And so we're going to be covering quite a lot of that today. So hopefully you are strapped in and ready to talk about it and are excited too. Of course, let me know, as always, what you thought of this starting of a book, and what you're thinking of what's going to happen and coming up, all that kind of stuff. So first things first to discuss is the point of view. Now, I know in the past we've sometimes been really detailed about point of view, and we've been kind of a little bit more just stating the obvious and just having a quick blip of it. And this one's one that's, I feel like, doesn't need to be discussed quite a lot. It is third person omniscient, and it does have some containment to it, though. I feel like it's a little bit more contained than, say, the third person of Dragonlance. We see in Dragonlance, as we talked about in that series, it kind of jumps quickly around between different characters and we're getting different viewpoints from our narrator. This one, I feel like it is a typical third-person omniscient. That narrator obviously knows what's going on and is relaying it to you. But we see a little bit more of a focus. We are jumping around to different scenes and different characters, but it's a little bit more contained where each little section is kind of focused on one character a little bit more than the other characters, and we're not jumping around quite so much. Usually when we're making a big change, there is that section break and we are then moving on to a new person or a new scene or a new something. So I definitely think it's interesting to think about the differences of points of view and how even the same kind of point of view can be portrayed differently. I think it does affect the reading and the style of the book. But I think for what we have, at least so far, that it works very, very well. It's a good choice. We get to see a large picture of what's going on while also having a little bit of focus, a little bit of more in-depth view on a particular scene through a particular person's thoughts and opinions on it. So let me know what you think of the point of view, if you see a big difference between this and, say, Dragonlance or other books that you've read that are third person, if you think it works, if you like it, all that kind of stuff. Would love to hear your thoughts and opinions, so please let me know. Next, let's go ahead and go over starting the story, because obviously we are just starting this story, we're just starting this series. What is it that we start with, and how does it feel, and what are our thoughts about it? So I have 3 different things I think really stand out at the beginning of this story. And the first one that kept striking me again and again as like noticeable is the fact that we're starting off with very complicated plots and subplots right off the bat. Like, first things first, we are truly starting off with Dritz being born. There is the attack on Devere, the House Devere. There's the killing and unsuccessful killing of Alton, and how he's becoming the faceless one. So we've got some pretty intense ideas happening all at once right when we're starting this story. It is not a soft opening where we're like hanging out at breakfast and talking about what we're going to do today, and then later, all hell breaking loose. This is a honest to goodness attack first thing at the beginning of this story, while there's so many other things happening, while you're learning about the world, you're understanding how things work around here, why they're attacking, all these things you have to catch up with and learn while we have these really sophisticated plot lines happening, and we are just being dropped right into the middle of it. So to start off with, we just really have ramped from 0 to 10 in just a matter of pages, because obviously the first page or 2, when we're just talking to the faceless one, adds the anxiety of what's happening and adds the tension, but it doesn't necessarily spout that all craziness is going to happen. But then we keep snowpiling it on and on and on until we're in a full roll of attacking House Devere and hoping that the consequences doesn't affect anything, I guess, in a way. I mean, to me, because I know that this story is supposed to be about Dritz and his birth is happening, that gives me anxiety. And then you're like, okay, well, what happens to Dritz if the repercussions of them, like of whatever happens and they fail, what then becomes of everything? Because we're at the beginning, we don't really know what's gonna happen. Anything could happen. They could fall into ruin from this, their house could be destroyed, and Dritz could be abandoned, whatnot. So my only thing is that knowing that this is a book about Dritz, and for those of you who might not have known that, the whole trilogy is meant to be about Dritz and his story. So that knowledge gave me that anxiety. So maybe if you didn't know that, you didn't have that same anxiety. But to me, I'm just very focused on, like, this is the beginning. So what does this mean for how things can turn out? It could be anything. We have no clue. So we have that being very complicated right from the start. We've got that there is no hand-holding for the reader. And by that, I mean we are expected to just jump into the middle of things with very minimal background knowledge of this world. So for me, as somebody who doesn't play D&D, for me as somebody who, yes, has read it one time, but has forgotten a lot of it because it's been a long time, and even when I first read it, I mean, I wasn't playing D&D then, and I have minimal knowledge about it, I'm being dropped in and expected to figure out what's going on, how the world works, who these characters are, and why they matter. Very much right from the start, because we already have these complicated plots that we are already diving into. So we've got that mentality of like, hey, I'm not going to walk you through this. You just gotta jump in and figure it out and go. For the world building, for why the events are important, what we should be paying attention to, what we shouldn't be paying attention to, having to figure things out for yourself as a reader when you're starting this novel. So not only were we starting off intense, we were also starting off with very minimal help of the narrator. There's very little explanation, and there's very little caring of whether you're keeping up or not, at least in the style of the writing. It's not like we take a break and go, oh, here's a snapshot of what you need to know in order to understand these events, and let's resume. Or even just characters explaining things to each other, because all these characters know everything about what's going on, and we are the ones that are in the dark. And the narrator is just telling you what's happening as if you've started from when they were planning the attack and before that even, possibly. So I find it very fun when books do this, where they just drop you in and you're just kind of like, okay, you're just running along. But it also can be kind of frustrating because you're just like, what the heck is happening? And why is this happening? And what's going to happen next? And you're just kind of a little lost. So I like that there is a good balance at this particular writing style and this particular book, is that Salvatore doesn't leave you to be quite so bewildered. He gives you enough to follow along, even if you are struggling to like figure out the pieces and put them together. But you don't feel like you're just like, I give up, it's too complicated. He gives you enough that you can keep striving forward and trying to understand and slowly get your way to being on point with where we're at in the book, and you've figured everything out finally. At least that's how I felt. I would love to hear if you were still struggling, but I feel like we're not so struggling that it's frustrating and give up. I felt very much like I'm confident in knowing I'm going to eventually get there. And the last thing I want to talk about is how when we start off, we immediately have such a dark tone to this story, to this world. So we've got that this sets the tone for the whole book, is like, okay, if we're starting off dark and we're starting off very strongly dark, it's going to be a dark book. It's probably going to be a dark trilogy. It is called the Dark Elf Trilogy, though that doesn't totally mean dark as in dark toned, but it does give it a little bit of a inspiration there, that it is a dark story. And we're talking about drow, which, as we have learned and as we will continue talking about in the next section about world building, is the drow are very evil and very manipulative people or beings. And as such, that means everything that's going on is going to be dark and gritty and very much like their setting, which is no light at all. So we've got a dark tone that's setting us up for potentially the rest of the book and the rest of the series. And we can kind of get a sense of what we're dealing with for that. We've got the graphic descriptions of things like the birthing that's happening while the attack is going on. So we've got kind of the style of this, not only this darkness of events, but we've got this grittiness of the graphic descriptions that it's almost like, oh, and it makes it very much more alive and realistic, and we're getting pretty creepy in there. And then we've got that, the actual setting is dark. I mean, I know that because it's not a visual medium, that it doesn't affect us quite as much with the setting, but we get the sense everything is dark, and we understand that, light is very much an adversary to these beings. And so that sets up for the tone as well. Like, okay, we've combined dark, dark everywhere. We've got that the events that are actually happening are also dark and murderous and happening in the time that nobody's supposed to be watching, and the creepiness. I can't really say in the dark because, there is no light to offset that darkness. So no matter what they do, they're doing it in the dark, whether it's, picking flowers or killing people. But there is a sense that there's these dark, murderous events happening, these very horrific things that are happening or supposed to be out of sight of people, even though we know that the drow are very much know all and oversee all, and there's only the pretense of the darkness and the not seeing it. So we've really started off very strong. It's a very good picture of what we're going to be getting ourselves into in these first set of chapters, on tone, on events, on building up of what kind of story this is going to be. I feel like R.A. Salvatore has really set us up at the beginning to not only be dropped in and be running for our lives, but that sets a precedence for what we're going to be reading moving forward for at least this book, if not for the trilogy. Of course, tone and events can then shift things to where later books we might be a little bit more higher note, but it also could not. So we're really just starting out and figuring out where we're going from here and what's going to be coming in this particular book. And right now it looks like a lot of dark and evil things are coming our way, which from the description we've had of things and this place that they're in, it seems likely that we're going to get more dark. We're going to get more evil. So I'd love to know what you think of the start of the story. Did you feel off balance just being jumped in? Do you feel the darkness? Do you feel that grittiness that we started off with? Or do you feel like you're just kind of riding along? I would be happy to hear your opinions and to see how your experience differed from mine. Please let me know. I'd love to hear it. Now comes our biggest section of discussion for this set of chapters, and that is our world building. It's done very, very smooth, and it's very integrated into like what's happening and what's going on. And if you're just paying attention to what you're reading, you really get a sense of the world and like how things work, and you're just, as you're trying to figure things out because you were just dropped in. But there is a lot to unpack about what is, told and what is explained about this world just from the events happening that are happening. Like, seriously, a whole bunch to cover right now. So let's go ahead and get right into it, and hopefully we can have fun discussing how this world works, at least as I have seen so far, what we have learned so far. So first off, let's talk about the drow, because obviously we're mostly focused on the drows and their society, at least at this point. They are known to be the most evil beings that live in the Underdark, and they basically rule it. So these are evil, evil beings, which kind of explains why we're in such a dark tone, because we're literally watching what evil does. And they are gonna probably get even more evil from here. That's just the truth of the matter. So we understand how evil they are, and we can get a sense of how evil they are based on their actions and how their society works. Which first comes to first, I don't know if that's really a saying. I don't know. We're talking with the matriarchy. It is a matriarchy, and I do like that uniqueness. Usually we don't see societies that have matriarchies in fantasy or in other works. So I really like that it's a little bit of a fresh sense of like this kind of society, with it being a matriarchy versus a patriarchy. And so women have all the power here, and the men are seen as very much lesser beings. They're there literally just to do what the women want, and the women can treat the men however they see fit, like fair game. If you treat a woman treats another woman, or a man treats a woman a certain way, that could be off limits. But a woman can do whatever she wants to a guy, and they have no recourse about it. Likely this is because they follow a goddess instead of a god, so that might be one of the reasons that their structure is based on women versus men. But that isn't stated. That's just my hypothesis based on, just religion does shape a lot of times what cultures do and do not do. So my guess is that Lolith is why they have a matriarchy. Men don't have status unless they have the name of the house. So whatever house that man is a part of, if they are a noble or related to, the leader of the house, then they might have some kind of status. but for the most part, that's limited as well on how much status that actually gives them. And if they aren't really related to the leader of the house, then really doesn't give them any status at all. And they are pretty much just so out of luck. It is important for a man to have some kind of purpose to further the woman or women's gain, what they want to gain, what they want to do. They must have some kind of skill or some kind of, something that just gives them an edge to help them gain their goals. Otherwise, again, they are seen as less than worthless, less than the dirt the women walk on, and can be easily replaced and thrown away. So men really have to worry in this society because they have very limited ways of gaining status, very limited ways of having importance, and if they lose that importance, then they're very easily thrown away, and the women really give no care about what they do to the men. So very stressful place, very stressful society to be a man. And if they could just have women, they would definitely get rid of all the men and just have women in this society, I'm very sure. Okay, next let's talk about the religion, which is Lilith, also known as the Spider Queen. So she is a very big force, we can already tell, in this world, in this society. They actively are they're actively worshiping her. They're actively caring about what she's saying, what she does, what she wants, what she likes, not taking her off, because she actually does have a semi-active role in the society. Not saying that she's literally there and is talking to them, but they can tell when she's displeased, when she's pleased with them. She has ways of giving signs of what she wants them to do and whether she likes what they did or didn't. And if you are out of her favor, then she will actively destroy you and be more than happy to do so. So Lilith is a very important part of this whole society. If you are not on her good side, then you are toast. Somebody else is going to take you out, especially if you're high ranking. Then you have to be extra vigilant and make sure that you are on top and in her good graces at all time. We've already seen that House 4, Devere, got killed and everybody is gone now because they were out of Lilith's favor long enough for somebody to attack, and anybody who's down lower in the ranks is more than willing and more than happy to attack to get what they want and to rise up in the ranks and in Lilith's favor. So your station in life and how well you're doing really depends on the goddess and how she feels about you and your house. So in a way, even the women do have to be a little bit worried and a little bit stressed at all times, because if you are out of her favor at all, your life could go downhill very fast. Unless you're very far down the totem pole, then it might not matter as much. But where we're at and what we've seen is that it matters a whole lot. Even if you're just the 10th house or the 4th house, it doesn't have to be just that first house. It is any house that has anybody below them. They're going to take you out. So it can be a little stressful society just in general, because you have to make sure that you are doing everything correctly and that you are watching your back, your front, your sides, making sure that you are constantly on top alert and that nobody can take you down in your moments of weakness. Okay, anything else? Yes, for the drow, they have only the care about the politics and their station. That is their goal in life. That is their dreams in life. That is all they care about, is how well they are looked at, their station, how well their queen thinks about them. And as such, everything kind of revolves around spying and politics and backstabbing and how you can get what you want. It's a very selfish society, and each house is out for their own. So we can see that being a major contributor of how things are going to go. We can see that's a big part about the plot. We can see that this is basically the what revolves around for their society, and that's going to be a big role to play in the upcoming story. And they do have some rules for their society. It's not that just, end all be all, everyone's in a brawl, killing each other and murdering each other. They have to do it very secretive and have to do it very much like they're under the radar, even if they're only under the radar. Like everybody knows, but you kind of sort of pretended like you were hiding, which made it okay. But really, try and do everything under the cover of darkness. And really, if you murder somebody else, it's a-okay, as long as you're not just murdering somebody in a crowded place. Like, do it privately, do it on your own time, don't bother anybody else with it, and then you can murder whoever you want. So again, it just shows how dark this society is. It shows how dark our book is gonna be. Everything is screaming dark, horrid, evil things in the night type of book going on here. So everything, even about the world that we are currently in right now, at least in this section of the world, we're seeing how dark and dismal this society is, and how greedy and selfish and horrible this society is. Now, let's move on to the setting. The setting, which also takes a toll on our tone and, kind of the events that we have happening. We are in Mensbransen. It's a very tough word for me to say. And it's a very large city that is located in the Underdark, which is located under the Forgotten Realms. So we are in the Forgotten Realms, but we are underground of the Forgotten Realms. We are not in the main area of the world. We are in the Underdark, which is below those societies that live in the Forgotten Realms. And it's known, like I said, as the Underdark. And we are in that particular city. It's a very large city, which means that there are more houses, which means that there's more politics, which means that there's more assassination and station money grubbers. So we're in kind of the thick of like where the drama is and where the action is for how drow society is really teeming with. So super interesting setting that we've got going here, super interesting placement. The people who come down from the Forgotten Realms portion that's above the surface, if they end up coming down to the Underdark, it is 99% likely that you will never see them again, and they will either be trapped down here, enslaved down here, or killed, or whatever. It is very unlikely that they were going to make it topside to ever be seen or heard from again. So it's a very dangerous place, and most of the people who are up in the regular topside of Forgotten Realms are not going to be venturing down into the Underdark unless they absolutely have no choice. So, already learning a lot. So let's now talk about creatures, because we learned a lot about some creatures too. So we got the drow, and they ride lizard mounts. We see that at the very beginning with Dinan. He's riding his lizard mount. So that's such a thing down there. We've got bugbears, which this is where now I have to ask you for a little bit of help, because I'm not sure what bugbears are. Maybe they're a Forgotten Realm creature, but it doesn't really give much of a description of what they are or how they exist or anything. So I get that they're kind of seem like they're a little bit like dumber creatures, but I really am not sure what bugbears are. So if you could let me know, that would be great. I am not really sure what kind of creature a bugbear is. Maybe it is related to just the Forgotten Realms, but I don't remember it ever showing up in Dragonlance, so let me know. Let me know if this is a D&D thing, if it's a Forgotten Realms thing. Maybe help me figure out exactly their main traits. Would just be really helpful if you could give me a hand there with the bugbears. We've got goblins and orcs, and the interesting thing is that we also learn through the goblins and orcs that slavery is a big thing, which, considering the society we're in that we just talked about, it is not surprising that they enslave people or enslave other beings. I'm sure they enslave their own kind. That does not seem weird to me at all. So slavery is a thing, and other creatures are high on the list to become slaves. Like basically if you're here and you're this kind of creature, you're a slave. So we've got those elements building for the creatures. And last but not least, we do have the building of at least the start of magic and magic in this world. There is an academy where one can learn magic. They can learn, I think, other things as well. But the Faceless One was a teacher there teaching wizardry and could work magic and is teaching it to others. We know that the priestesses can work magic. It seems like they might have magic that's coming more from Lolith as their goddess and pulling on the power of the goddess, since it dealt with prayers and dealt with more ritualistic type elements. So I think based on how it was described, hold on guys. Pardon me. Okay. Based on the priestesses' kind of like prayers and the way that they were saying things and the kind of more ritualistic nature of it, it seemed like their magic was more based on a connection to Lolith, being given those powers and then being able to enact that. So, I mean, even pain was a source for being able to work that magic and ended up strengthening it. The pain of bearing a child did enhance and kind of really expounded upon the spell that they were making. So we'll have to learn a little bit more about how that works and exactly what is allowed or not allowed for that kind of magic. But we've got those two basic kind of magic that we've seen so far. And we have seen that it is used also to animate corpses that then can become a type of slave as well. So when you die, your body might not be buried. Very likely that it won't be buried. Instead, somebody will be using it to do hard labor or do tasks that they animate it to do, and will be walking around still doing who knows what for who knows who, and could possibly change hands at any moment, considering if one house is taken down, they might take that person and reanimate them and take them away to do something else as well. So I think that covers a lot of what we learned in this section, but please let me know if I missed anything important. I felt like I was really narrowing in and trying to write down every detail of things that we're learning, but there is a lot to take in, a lot to learn. Obviously, we've got character building a bit in these sections, but I don't feel like we learned enough compared to everything else that we're learning to really discuss anyone in detail. So maybe the next class we will learn a little bit more about some characters where I can actually dig in and we can have a discussion about what their role is so far. Instead, I felt like the world building was really the strongest thing going on, along with the basic start and the basic feel of the book. So again, let me know if I missed anything, but I feel like I got quite a few of the things that we have learned and discover in this section. Let's do the nitty gritty now. I've got, as usual, 3 nitty gritty things that I want us to keep in mind, possibly might affect ourselves in the future. So maybe we want to keep this as a way of moving forward into the next books, or just things that might be interesting to note or to talk about. The first one is Dritz's, I don't know, the apostrophe S, I don't know, after Dritz, it's a tongue twister a little bit there. So Dritz's violet eyes has been really much pointed out. They're very unique. He's not blind, so that's very good because now he won't be killed. But the violet eyes seem to work perfectly in the night, and they work perfectly with light as well. So we're going to find out a little bit more, hopefully, about what's special about those violet eyes and what it means and possibly how he got them in the future chapters. Might come in handy in other times. We don't know exactly, but it's been very much pointed out in this set of chapters when he is born, and they're really making a big deal out of it. So obviously this is an anomaly, and we're going to figure out what that means hopefully in the future. So let's keep that in mind and keep an eye out for his eyes. Next is how long we have to wait to see what will... Let me restart my statement here. I'm not saying it in a way that is good to say. I am interested to know how long we are going to have to wait in order to figure out Alton's revenge story. So obviously Alton is still alive and he's going to get revenge. And part of taking down a house is that no one can survive. If somebody can survive and tell you, hey, you took down my house, you assassinated these people, like, you're the one then in trouble. So my question for what we've started building right now is how long are we going to take in order to not only have him find out who killed his house, which house killed his house, and how is he going to go about his revenge? Is that going to be in this book? Are we going to have anxiety and wonder about it for all 3 books until at the end of the 3rd book we realize that he's coming to have his revenge? What will that look like? So we're starting off something very long term, it seems like, at the beginning that we now have to worry about. And then it's probably going to keep being brought back up as we see him figuring out what happened. And we're going to have to find out how this is going to progress and how this is going to affect things. It did not go smoothly in the end. Not everything was as perfect as it seemed because of the changes that Dinan made. Well, we don't know for certain that it would have changed anything otherwise, but it seems like Dinan's changes might have made it so Alton survived. So we're going to see what happens with that. And last, I think the one character I felt like we got a little bit more information about that was interesting was Zach. And it seems like he doesn't mind killing priestesses whatsoever. He would kill Do'Urden priestesses. He loved killing the Devere priestesses. So it seems like he's really happy with killing them. But he's not happy with killing drow children. And it seems like in many ways he's not happy with the life and culture of the drow. Now, we didn't get enough details in this to say for certain and to really in-depth talk about it. But it seems like Zach is somebody who's on my radar right now because he had that interesting reaction to knowing that Dinan killed his brother and not liking that. He didn't want to be around all the children getting murdered. He seemed kind of like he was spiraling into despair a little bit and how he was just not happy with his life and how things are turning out. So I'm very interested to know more about Zach and what his role in all of this is going to be. So, okay. Whew. Felt like I had so much to talk about today, but we had a lot going on in these chapters. Couldn't even make it all the way to our normal, at least 5 chapter section. I just felt like we have to talk about what's already been laid down here in these first 4 chapters, the prologue and that little section for station. So, please let me know if I forgot anything. It is very likely since there is a lot going on. Please let me know your thoughts and feelings on any of this. I would be happy to have a discussion with you and to hear your thoughts and feelings about this book. I'm really excited to be starting this new trilogy with you. I think we will have a lot of fun with it. And even based on just these first couple of chapters, we are already seeing that this series at least has a lot for us to kind of go in depth on and really look and discuss together. So I'm super excited about that. Before we go ahead and completely wrap up, let's go ahead and just go over the trivia question from last week. The question was, are banshees typically male or female? And the answer to that is female. I don't know of any banshees that are known to be male, but there could be a story written out there that has that uniqueness to it. But pretty much they're always female. And we've got quite a few correct answers this week, so thanks to, and good job to Brendan, Dave, Tasseloff, Dan, and Christian. Screaming about it isn't gonna help. So you got it, all of you got it correct, and nice job to you guys. Thank you so much to everybody else who participated and gave it their best shot. I really love seeing all your answers, seeing what you think and your thoughts, and being able to play this game with you. So thank you so much to everyone who participates. If you yourself would like to participate, you're more than welcome to by going over to the blog, fantasyfictionfanatics.net. It's going to be for the desktop version. on the right hand side, you'll just scroll down just a little bit and it will be there for you to answer, as well as we'll tell you the previous week's correct answers if you miss it on a video. You'll also be able to scroll all the way down for mobile. You'll have to go almost all the way down to the bottom, but then you will see it there and you can answer it there. So hopefully I will see you guys in the trivia question and you'll be able to have fun with all of us who are already doing it. All right. If you would like to comment and to talk or discuss anything, go ahead and leave your comment down below. Or if that's not the best place for you, you're always welcome to contact me another way. I am on Facebook, which is /fantasyfiction1. I am on Twitter, which is @fantasyfiction1. You are welcome to direct message me on both of those. And now I am also on Instagram. It is one I just made very recently, so there is not much over there. But that is also @fantasyfiction1 if you want to go ahead and follow me on Instagram and see what I'm posting over there. You can get a hold of me over there too. I just don't know how much that works for direct messaging. I am still learning about Instagram. I don't have a personal Instagram, and I am still learning the ropes of how Instagram works. So if you have any tips of what you think would be fun to post over on Instagram or how it works, I'd be happy to hear about it and to be educated on it so I can use it more effectively in the future. But yes, hopefully you will follow me over there as well. I would be happy to see your reactions to what I post and to get updates as much as I can over there. Yeah, so I'm pretty excited though because it is a new medium as far as the posting goes over there. So I'm hoping I can come up with some fun stuff for you to enjoy when I'm not able to post a video or in between posting videos. Okay, anything else? Yes, the Discord, which I think is the best place to go ahead and be, because not only can you direct message me, and not only can you get updates about what I'm posting here and on the blog, you can also talk to your fellow fantasy fiction fanatics and get their opinions on things. You can get their recommendations. You can talk about things that aren't fantasy related. You can talk about pretty much anything over there. I have it all sectioned out for whatever you might want to talk about. We can talk about it together and have a great time. And hopefully you will join us and see us there. We have several people over there already talking and chatting and having fun. So we would love to have you join us. I guess that is it from me today. So I will see you guys in the next class. Bye.